beautiful people. How's it going? Um, so today or tonight or whenever you're watching this, um, I'm taking a request. I do take requests. Um, and I forget who requested this, but shout out to whoever did. Um, Now this is Dyer, and he gives reasons he's not an atheist. And I actually have no idea who Dyer is. According to Google, he's an author. So yeah, whatever. So let's see if his reasons are any good. Just let me bring them up. Okay. And here we go. Apparently, he has more than 10 reasons he's not an atheist because he says these are his top 10. So, top 10, they must be pretty good if they made his top 10 list. But let's see if I think they're any good. Which, you know, eh, you can agree with me, you can disagree with me. Leave down in the comments. And let's go.
Why I'm not an atheist. I was never really tempted with atheism ever since I went to college and started my trek into the world of philosophy since 18, 19. I've had a lot of debates with atheists. We used to debate atheists all the time on campus. In the philosophy club, we would have constant debates. So I'm very familiar with atheist argumentation. I had a lot of atheist professors, and I even debated atheist professors when I was a sophomore. I had a public debate with my philosophy of science professor at the time. So I'm very familiar with various atheist positions. It's a position I've interacted with probably for 20 years now. So maybe 21, 22 years. So I want to be as fair as I can. I don't want to give misrepresentations. I know that there's a lot of different views that fall under atheism. I know that some
Oh, good. He's going to try to be fair. Um, so far, so good. I don't know what it would mean to be tempted with atheism. Atheism's just the answer to a question. Do you believe in God? If you do, you're a theist. If you don't, you're an atheist. I honestly don't know what he means by tempted by atheism. But that's what we're here to find out, right? Alrighty, let's go on.
people conceive of atheism as agnosticism, just simply saying that we don't know, we can't know. And then other more hardcore positions that there absolutely is no kind of higher being, nothing transcendental, etc. So I'm going to get my 10.
So I'm glad he made this distinction. Yeah, there is two different types of atheists. I'm the agnostic atheist, saying I don't know. Tell you the honest truth, I don't really care. Um, there are Gnostic atheists out there. Um, Now, in way of gods, I will say this. If you ask me about the Bible God, I will say I am a Gnostic atheist on the Bible God. There is no fucking way the Bible God can't exist. As for the other gods, I don't know. And like I said, I don't really care. Moving on.
Reasons, they're not really in a specific order, just like the other top 10s. Why I'm not a Catholic, why I'm not Protestant. You can watch those videos. Right, that's the main reasons that occur to me. So if you follow a lot of my debates, if you've seen a lot of those, a lot of the interactions that we've had, a lot of the lectures, then you probably know some of these. You probably heard a lot of these, but let's try to boil it down to something as quick as we can for a top 10. So the first one with transcendental argument is the strongest argument for God's existence, and it's because it shows the necessity of God's existence in a logical framework. It can be written out as a syllogism. We've given many examples of that syllogism if you listen to the debate that I did.
Okay, I'm not sure I know what the transcendental argument is, and obviously, I hope he's going to explain it. But there is no reason that necessitates a God. No reason, in my humble opinion. Okay? Let's see what he says.
With Dr. Malpass, you'll notice that towards the end of the debate, I listed a syllogism there that could work. But basically, everything that we engage in this world, such as mathematics, logic, abstract entities, they all presume what are called transcendental categories. Right? They rely on things that are not known or proven through mere sense experience. So we could think about things like spatio-temporal relations. We could think about things like the past. We could think about things like objects having identity over time. We could think about things like the transcendental unity of a self. Right? That there is a self-existing something. I know that atheists won't say that there's a soul, but there's something that's having this experience of the world that is a conscious experience, right? Whatever terms you want to use to call that. These are, in philosophy, titled things like transcendentals. They're things that are assumed for the possibility of reason or logic at all. And if you were to deny any one of these, you would actually undercut and negate the possibility of logic or philosophy or reasoning or meaning or knowledge whatsoever. And so that's why they're so strong and so powerful, is that they're necessary for a worldview at all. Now, a person can theoretically deny these things and continue to have a worldview, pragmatically speaking, but at that point, they're just being inconsistent. And so when we bundle all of these things together, these transcendental categories that are necessary, again, for cognition, for meaning, for objectivity, et cetera, for consciousness, for knowledge, for ethics, then what we get is a bundle that doesn't stand on its own. How do we justify those things? Do we just say that they are? Well, they
Oh my fucking God. Is he going to say logic comes from God? Mathematics comes from God? All right. Settle down. You don't know that's what he's going to say, but I have a bad feeling about this argument. Let's see what he says.
actually do need to be grounded. They need to be made coherent, and they need to be strung together, so to speak, on a you could think of it like a golden string of pearls that strings together all these transcendental things, and that is the mind of God Himself. The mind of God is.
He did it. He did it. Exactly what I thought he was going to do. No. Those things take reality and time, space, and matter, which is part of reality, but doesn't take God. I don't know how you even get to that. Actually, I do. You start with God, and then you work your way backwards. All right, moving on.
The basis, the ground for these things. And although it may sound kind of counterintuitive, it is. You can logically show this. Now we've done the many talks. I'll put some of those talks down below for a longer presentation. But essentially, any worldview that doesn't have that as its grounding, any worldview that tries to do materialism as its basic, it ends up in self-contradiction at a very fundamental level. So I would say that that the transcendental argument itself is the first reason that I would believe in God's existence, because it shows that reasoning itself presupposes the Christian God. The second reason that I would not be an atheist is that we utilize all these things like meaning, like logic, like math, and we think about those abstract conceptual things, but there's also other things like love, like beauty, aesthetics, things that relate to the world like telos or causality. Those things in themselves can't be empirically demonstrated. They're actually assumed. And so they're kind of like the transcendental categories that I mentioned before, things like causality and telos would be. And I would argue that you could even include perhaps aesthetics in that category, right? It's actually impossible to live your life as if the good is purely subjective. And that's what I think is amazing here, is that even such basic philosophical assumptions like whether there's an external world,
Good is subjective. I don't care whether you think there's a God or not, because if you believe there is a God, you must subjectively come to the opinion that that God has or is good, which, by the way, Bible God isn't, but we'll punt that to another day. As for aesthetics, do you know what a brain is? You're using it right now, Jay. Not very well, but you're using it. All that needs to be in order for aesthetics to exist is a brain. Unless you're using a weird ass definition of the word aesthetics, which I don't think you are, because you said love, and that's part of it, aesthetics. So, as for the others, I done forgot what you said, so um, we're just gonna leave that and move on.
world ultimately can't be justified unless you have a world grounded in an external being like the mind of God, and not in our own subjective experience. So essentially, another one of these key assumptions would be that your senses match up to an external world, right? We all kind of assume that in our dialogue, in our discourse, in our daily living. But can we actually empirically verify that claim? No, you can't. It has to be assumed, and it can't be empirically verified. Now, how do we prove that if we can't empirically verify it? Well, the first point that we always say is that rank empiricism, and most atheists, not everybody, but most atheists are naive rank empiricists. They believe that we only know what's true from sense data and from sense experience. The problem with this, of course,
That is not true. I mean, most atheists, obviously not all, but most atheists believe in a lot of things that they can't sense, like the Big Bang. We can't sense the Big Bang. We can't touch, taste, feel, smell, or what's the other one? touch, taste, feel, smell, or see the Big Bang. I mean, not even telescopes can see the Big Bang. So you're just flat out wrong. And then, on the other hand, some atheists will come up with type feelsy nonsense, aliens and stuff like that, you know. Anyway, moving on.
Course, is that you cannot prove that proposition, that belief itself from sense experience, and so therefore it's at a fundamentally, it's at a fundamental level, it's very contradictory. So much so that it can't even get off the ground.
No. Just because you can't sense something doesn't mean it's contradictory. Where the fuck did you even get something like that? Anyway, I did not think this was going to be this bad. Honestly, I didn't. All right, moving on.
So I would say if you look at things like, again, beauty, beauty relates to form and symmetry. And if you took something like a Mandelbrot set as an example, a Mandelbrot set shows that this mathematical structure, this set based on set theory, is not something that is emitted by the mind of man. And now a lot, not all, but a lot of atheists will say that mathematics is a social construct. It's a human invention. It's not something that's actually being discovered, like you were, going out and discovering, Antarctica or something like this, right? But in fact, a lot of mathematicians will speak of mathematics as a landscape of discovery, that when somebody discovers something like a Mandelbrot set, they're not inventing it, they're actually discovering something, right? And that's
I have no idea about math. I can do up to trig. I tried calculus. Couldn't do it. I have no clue what he's on about. So let's move on.
that shows that these are not products of our mind, but they exist in some kind of realm beyond our minds. Ultimately, that's the mind of God. And I have an essay where I argue about this kind of stuff.
As for math being a social construct, yeah, it is a social construct. Do you think mankind always did math? As for discovering it, yeah, I mean, the formulae aren't out there to be discovered. I don't know what you mean. You have to be more specific on that, Jay. Okay? But the formulae aren't out there somewhere to be discovered. That's something somebody puts down. But as for the reality that math encompasses, yeah, that's discovered. I I don't know what else you could mean. Like I said, I'm not a math person. Moving on.
Called Numbers Prove God, where I flesh that out more. So if you want to go deeper into that, I'll leave that link in the pinned comment below. So there's also a great lecture by Dr. Jason Lisle on Mandelbrot sets. I'll include that in the link as well. Again, this is just
Unless you want to waste your time, I'd suggest you not watch Jason Lyle. He's an AIG employee rather. Sorry. Kind of tired, but I can't sleep. Go figure. So if I misspeak, sorry. But yeah, Jason Lyle is an AIG employee, so, unless you want to get a kick out of it and waste some time, yeah, moving on.
a top 10. I can't prove every single proposition and every single argument in a top 10 video. So because I know there's going to be atheists in the comments saying you didn't prove nothing, you just stated your position of transcendental arguments, just stating position. Argumentation in the pinned comment. The next argument I would say is that nihilism is the end result of atheism. Now, not atheists might want to go in this direction, but I think if you read Father Seraphim Rose's great philosophical presuppositional critique of revolutionary thought and atheism, atheism is just one of the flavors of revolutionary thought. I'm speaking of modern atheism since the Enlightenment, and it leads to nihilism.
Okay, first of all, atheism is not modern by any stretch of the imagination. Before religions came about, people were atheists because people had no idea of the social construct of God or gods. So you're just flat out wrong there. And, wow, this is really, really bad. I'm sorry. I understand why he made this video, but I can't understand how I can't understand how these are his top 10 reasons why he's not an atheist. Moving on.
I think he proves that case that there's a kind of a dark logic that nihilism takes you down as you going to over time become more and more consistent with your governing, more and more consistent with that, and end up in nihilism. We can actually see the logic of this as it works out in Western thought. For example, if we go back to the Enlightenment, the scientific revolution, you have the rise of rationalism, you have the rise of these universal Enlightenment ideals, and then within a few centuries, this degenerates into just sort of will to power Nietzscheanism, and then to just full on nihilism. And then there have been quite a few nihilists.
Okay, the dragging, where he can't be understood, that's on his video. I have no idea why he uploaded it when that's on his video. Anyway, nihilism? No. I don't know about most atheists, but not all atheists are nihilists. I don't know where you even got that idea from. Like, do you even, I know you say you debate atheists, but have you ever talked to an atheist? Like one on one, not trying to best them in a debate or anything. Just talk to them one on one. Because I don't think you do. Nihilism is not the end result of atheism. It's just not. Moving on.
Revolutionaries were openly nihilistic. V.I. Lenin pretty nihilistic in his philosophy. So there is a real progression to that dark left-hand path, you could say, of being more consistent with one's nihilistic assumptions. And so even though stage one atheism might not be nihilistic, the end result, if you're being consistent, is nihilistic, because there's not really any reason for anything. There's no reason to do X over Y. There's no reason that this is preferable to that. And it's, in effect, all actions are
No, there is a reason. Just because you can't understand our reasons doesn't mean we don't have reasons. This is so fucked up. Like, this is so fucked up. Just because there's not some kind of an afterlife waiting, which, by the way, some atheists do believe in afterlives, but that's for another time. Um, just because there's not an afterlife doesn't mean we don't have reasons for doing things. Like, I don't even know where you got that from.
perfectly equalized. And if all actions are perfectly equalized, it doesn't matter what happens. It just is. And as human, kind of value judgment from a mere is, right? Something, just the fact that something is the case does not lead to the conclusion that something ought to be, or you should do this, or you ought to do that. That's the domain of ethics. And atheism and materialism cannot provide any objective standard of ethics. Now, you can say things like, well, but you got to be nice to people, you shouldn't harm people. But why? Why?
Because you don't want to be harmed, you doofwad. Sorry. Okay. Why shouldn't you harm people? Because it makes for a better society. That's why. Society, the thing we have to live in. Oh my god. Oh my god. This is getting worse. This is getting worse by the reasons. Alright, moving on.
World is full of predator-prey relations. Why not harm people? Why not crush everyone that I want, and take my own harem of everyone else's wives, and start my own cult and make me the Ubermensch, right? Why not? There's no reason why you shouldn't do that. There's no reason for anything. Events just are. And so ultimately, again, the problem here is that on this position, you have a situation where even your own consciousness is just a series of chemical reactions. It's not a real, there's nothing underlying these phenomenal experiences. There's nothing underlying these chemical reactions. There's no actual meaning to them. They just are.
So your contention is that we don't have reasons for doing things because our brains are run by chemical reactions. Well, yeah, our brains are run by chemical reactions, whether you want to believe that or not. But, and I have a degree in psychology. Don't want to get too far into this, but you can override those chemical reactions to an extent. Okay? When your frontal lobes develop is when you have full capacity to override to a certain extent those impulses, let's say. Um, and the frontal lobes don't develop until about age 25, fully developed till around age 25. Um, so, yeah. Moving on.
And I think that that's severely problematic. The next point I would make is not ultimately a proof of the position as a whole, but as I've gotten older, I think that the proof against atheism, but it's an analysis that I do think is worthy of mentioning. Again, it's not against a lot of different views, but I've seen this more and more as I've gotten older.
Wait a minute. You think any of your arguments up until now have been logical? Because I've got news for you. They haven't. Moving on.
Older, especially after many years of 20 years of looking at the world of atheism and watching the new atheists, is it a bunch of people who are seeking through altruistic reasons to find the truth and to be logical and to be rational and to be scientific. In fact, atheism is promoted by very powerful, wealthy people. Again, not just because of people.
Oh my God. He just described Christianity. He just described Christianity. Like, the Catholic Church is uber rich, okay? And the crap politicians we have in DC, that's all I'm going to say, are funded, a lot of the politicians are funded by the Christian right. So don't even give me that shit, okay? I don't feel like getting on a high horse. Oh my God, this has got to be the worst reason yet. Moving on.
Nobly wanting to see what's true and dispel superstitions, but actually to take society in a larger sense in a certain direction. And if you study the history of revolutionary movements, which I did extensively in college and grad school, you'll learn about worldviews and ideology.
Yeah, and the biggest ideology being weaponized today in the United States? Christianity. Moving on.
this for many years. I've written 2 books that deal with this very topic. My master's degree was on the way that the CIA utilizes ideology. Time, you'll notice that ideologies, even things like atheism, can be psychological warfare tools. And I didn't know that as a young guy. Even when I started being atheist, I had no idea that something like psychological warfare and social engineering could be that sophisticated. And of course, it absolutely is. And I would say that when you look at the modern day atheists, a lot of them actually are being propped up by why they all sort of tout the system establishment line. They don't really deviate from anything that's establishment. They're all just kind of establishment mouthpieces. And I think they're telling that they were us,
Wait a minute. Do you think that anyone who toes the line is an atheist? Dude, you got to get your shit together. Hey, Turco Ease. Haven't seen you here. How's it going? I'm doing Jay Dyer. I've never heard of him. This is a request. So far he has got some really bad reasons. I don't really care whether he's a Christian, a Muslim, an atheist, but these are some really bad reasons not to be an atheist. Okay, cool. He's talking about atheists having a ton of money behind them. And oh my God, has he ever heard of Christianity? The Catholic Church is like uber rich, you know. The Christian right in America is trying to buy political seats. It's horrible. But anyway, there are I'll go ahead and tell you there are some times when you're like, ooh, that's on his video, it's not on mine. So let's keep going, okay?
altruistic reasons, the truth, the noble scientist kind of guy who's willing to risk it all for the truth. If that was really the case, then why do they line up across the board on all of the kind of normie takes on everything, whether it's Tyson, Bill Nye? And I think that
that's because they're scientists, and when it comes to science, they have a consensus. But when it comes to personal opinion, it's called personal opinion for a reason. That's why. Oh my God. Oh my God. Make my brain stop hurting. Anyway, I'm sorry, Turquoise. I know you like the guy, but moving on.
That's very suspicious and suspect. And they're just establishment pop mouthpieces, and that's a big, I think, blow to the validity of these pop atheists who are still sort of out there promoting this worldview. So it's a very naive approach, right? It's a naive approach in terms of understanding the world, as if atheism and the atheist thinkers and aren't being supported by this purpose of taking society in a direction. And ultimately, you can watch movies and book series.
Atheists aren't being supported by the American society, that's for sure. Well, there are different fields of science. I'll give you that. All right, moving on. Oh, Dick, what the philosophy of science is? Oh, do you know? Well, science is materialistic because it's all we know there is materialism. Moving on.
What direction they want to go in. And after reading 40 plus books and lecturing on them from the top elite of the last century, you can absolutely, and we just saw this with the H.G. Wells book that we did, God the Invisible King. Is pragmatically speaking, you always want to appeal to pragmatic arguments. Oh, it doesn't work. Christianity doesn't work. It leads to oppression. It leads to superstition. It's this, that. Do these societies actually work? I don't think so. I mean, again, the problem here is that when we use the word work, work assumes that we have some sort of gradation, some sort of benchmark, some sort of value judgment by which we can determine and assess whether things do or do not work, right? So that's, once again, to say that atheist societies work, that's going to be conditioned on your presuppositions themselves. You're going to read what works based on your presuppositions, right? So, for example, if I think that it's good to depopulate.
Okay. Turco, what's he talking about? Well, yeah, that's true too. What's he talking about? I have no idea what he's talking about. The foundations of society. Oh, he's talking about atheist societies or atheist societies not working or something like that. Okay. First of all, if you're talking about something like communism, then it's not atheism that's the problem. It's communism that's the problem, or the way communism was put into practice. Don't know, don't care. Okay, moving on.
populate, and I killed off most, Georgia Guidestones. Let's say we kill off most of the world, or something like this, down to 500 million. If I believe that is good, then I think that works. If I think that works, I believe it. All pragmatism is that if I went.
No, being good has nothing to do with what works. Okay? I don't know how you got this confused. I really don't. Marriage is a social construct, Turco. It's not a religious construct. Well, it is religious in so far that religion is a social construct. No, that's why you need a moral philosophy. Atheism isn't supposed to tell you what to do or not to do. It's an answer to a question. That's up to you. That's up to you. Go read some books. Okay, well, have you ever thought that the nuclear family isn't the only kind of family there is? Only the West has this idea of a nuclear family. People outside of the West would look at you like you've grown two heads if you said, well, my family consists of my mom and dad and my brothers and sisters. They'd look at you like you'd grown two heads. Because they got grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles and cousins. Moving on.
Hand assumes a objective standard while at the same time typically denying objective standards, and that's incoherent. That's a contradiction. That's being illogical. It's a violation of logic. So the point being is that, and when I say, well, if you want to work, or if you think that it's good to have some sort of entity that enacts mass death or something like this, or a communist state, a
Oh, so God telling King Saul to go smite the Amalekites over some something some dead people, some long ago dead people did. That's not anti-human. Or how about the flood? Not that it happened, but let's go with the Bible. The flood happened. All but 8 people were wiped out. That's not anti-human. No, Turco, The aunts and uncles and grandma and grandpa, that is not the nuclear family. The nuclear family is parents and children. Tell yourself whatever you have to, Turco. Tell yourself whatever you have to. Moving on.
Technocratic state that's going to depopulate on a mass scale, then it does work, right? Now, I know that there could be atheists who say, well, we don't want that. We want, the Charter of Human Rights or something like this. But again, the reason here, the argument I'm making here is that there is no, we should not protect the life of ABC. There's no real objective reason to delineate between why we should or should not, because shoulds and should nots are the domain of ethics. And in this worldview,
There's no basis for objective ethics in any worldview. All ethics, all morals are subjective. Even if you believe in God. Because you subjectively have to come to the conclusion that your particular God has the morals and ethics that you want to live by. That is your subjective opinion.
atheist philosophers who think that they can give a basis for some kind of objective ethics or secular ethics or something like this, but they can't. Because there's no such thing, again, as objective standards. There's no such thing as metaphysics in this position, because most modern atheism, again, maybe you can find a guy here or there, but most modern atheism comes out of the tradition of David Hume, the classic skeptic, the denial of metaphysics and the denial of these sort of absolute concrete metaphysical principles. And when you do that,
Yeah, I don't care what David Hume says. I don't even know the dude. I've heard of him, but I haven't read him, and I could care less. Get on to something interesting.
you kind of box yourself in, and you're limited in the options of where you can go in terms of things like ethics. And so I would say that atheism actually doesn't work, and it doesn't produce a, quote, healthy society, because what we conceive of as healthy and what we conceive of as working is actually going to be based.
Oh, you don't think atheism builds a healthy society? Well, let's see. The Scandinavian countries, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, they're the most atheistic countries on earth. They have universal health care, universal basic income, lower murder rates than Christian nations. They have lower criminal rates, criminal being of whatever flavor. I just put murder outside of criminal because that's what most people want. But look it up. Look it up. Moving on.
Based on our presuppositions. And if our presuppositions are false or incorrect, then they're going to lead to incorrect conclusions. And so if, for example, we look at, say, radical anarchism as an atheist position, or if we look at radical socialism or communism or dictatorship, fascism, whatever, as perhaps to them.
Yeah, I don't believe any of that. Radical anything is not healthy.
Then really all you have is a dialectic at work. There's no reason to to prefer or to think that one is better than the other. Now you might like the individual anarcho position better because maybe it affords you the opportunity to pleasures or something like that. But on what basis is this? Does that mean that's actually true, right? Because you prefer or you enjoy pleasures within libertarian anarcho-system atheism as opposed to a collectivist system of atheism. It's just completely arbitrary and ad hoc. There's actually not a reason for one or the other. And to say,
Yeah, well, your reasons for being a Christian are ad hoc, so don't have much to say other than that.
well, it's just what I want, that's called being arbitrary. That's called being ad hoc. That's not actually giving a reason. That's just being subjective. So once again, it always boils. If you look at the debate with JF, if you look at the debate with any other atheists I've had, it always boils back down to subjectivism. And that's again grounded in a movement against objective metaphysical principles 99% of the time. The next argument I would say is that ultimately then atheism is anti-human. Now, again, if you're an atheist, there's a tension in a lot of atheists between, on the one hand,
Did you have to try to get up to 10? Because, dude, you already said this. Moving on.
we're secular humanists. We believe in the good of man and man rising up and the power of human reason. And at the same time, man is conceived of as this buffoon, this entity that's a kind of cancer on Mother Earth that most humans, because they don't have IQ 150 or above, we got to get rid of all of them. So there's this dialectical tension between
What the fuck are you talking about? I have no clue what you're on about. Oh my god. Oh my fucking god. This is a dumpster fire of a video. Well, V3, they are. I don't know what to tell you. And that's not how you spell ad hoc.
so-called, and on the other hand, anti-humanism, right? And when you get to the root of the humanist movement, you'll see that most of them, they're not humanists. They want most people to die. I mean, look at the history of the depopulation movement. Look at the Rockefeller Foundation. Look at
You do know that most of the wars ever fought were fought in the name of religion? You do know that, right? And yet you want to say that atheism is a depopulation movement? Dude, I have no idea what to say to you on that.
The communist regimes, all the murder, all this stuff. When you try to instantiate these utopian kind of systems, they lead to disaster because this world is not utopian. And it leads to disaster because atheism itself is a false philosophy. It doesn't work. It actually is not pragmatic, although it claims to be pragmatic. So I would say that when you have a system where there's no image,
Yeah, Jay, you can't just say that it's not pragmatic. You have to explain why it's not pragmatic. But I don't think you're going to do that. So let's just move on.
of God, where man's not made in the image of God, then all human rights are worthless and meaningless. There's not really any human rights because you're not damaging, you're not being held to an objective standard because all standards are relative. Right? So atheism is the dehumanization of man, and the global elite actually understand that, and that's why they foster atheism, to demoralize and to brutalize you, so that you are then more malleable for the social engineering, right? From soy wars, from video games, from all the replacement stuff that you get from the system to make you feel like you're a male, to give you synthetic masculinity, sports, all this nonsense, right? Those are all your replacement masculine idols, right? Which really ultimately you would get in being grounded in real philosophy, being grounded in real metaphysics, real epistemology, ultimately in theology, right? So all of this stuff is a replacement for that. Next, I would say that atheism is materialistic ultimately. Most of the time, again, 99%. You could have an atheist who believes, oh, well, we just live in a dream simulation. Oh, we just live in some kind
Well, if you're saying most atheists are scientific, then yes. V3. Most political movements are at their heart religious. I don't know what to tell you if you don't believe that.
of like matrix we live in. It's all my, it's all solipsism, right? And my argument here is that ultimately atheism can't, as we mentioned earlier, this idea of the senses matching up to the external world. Do you actually know, prove that there's an external world? I'm speaking logically here, right? So these are dilemmas that, again, atheist philosophers have raised, like David Hume, and the inability to prove these kinds of claims logically, all the way up to William Van Orman Quine and his two dogmas of empiricism, where he restates the arguments of Hume. A lot of these kinds of things you can't actually prove empirically. And this is why atheistic philosophy is so bankrupt, is that it actually doesn't understand the limitations that it puts itself in to actually undermine logic itself, to undermine philosophy. And so if all that exists is material, matter, then not only can you not know that, because that's actually a metaphysical claim, it's a universal claim, first of all, you can't actually ultimately know that the
Yeah, I don't really care about this. Well, let's see. The Crusades were religious, even though they claimed they weren't. They claimed they were political. They claimed they wanted to get back Jerusalem from the Muslims. But they were religious. Okay? No, the Bolshevik Revolution was not religious. Um, what it was a clash between the Russian Orthodox Church and the leaders. That's what it was. And that is religious. Oh, gee, I don't know. Could it be because they slaughtered everybody in Jerusalem, whether they were Muslim, Christian, or whatever? Could it be that they fought battles along the way and they didn't give a shit where people stood? Which was religious. It was religious. I just said it was a struggle between the Russian Orthodox Church and the Bolsheviks. That is religious. No, Turco. I'm not putting that up because I will get demonetized for that. But 88 and his movement were not secular. They were creationists. Okay? They were creationists. That's why they went after the Jews. No, they were not, Turco. You need to learn history. Okay? 88 was not an atheist. You've been listening to too many apologists. He was a Christian. That's why he went after the Jews.
The external world is not just a projection of your own psyche. And some have gone in that direction. Some people actually do believe that. And I would say that so again, if you know the history of Western philosophers, when they debate this kind of topic, they come to because they say things like, well, if we're just basing on our sense data, all we have is impressions, right? Like senses of smell, sight, right? Those are just right at what Kant called the Ding an sich. We only know the phenomenal experiences that we have. So it's entirely possible, if you think about a dream state, right, that all of those exterior sense impressions that are being pressed upon us are just mental phantasms. Right? And if they're just mental phantasms, then we don't actually know if there's an external world, and you can't empirically demonstrate that. This is the kind of question that Descartes raises, right? Now, I don't believe that as a Christian. I believe obviously there's an external world. What I'm saying is that atheistic philosophy, because it basically takes what we would say is true of the mind of God, and it tries to smush that into the mind of man, and ultimately an atheist.
Yeah, he's trying to press on me bullshit that I do not believe. I don't believe that. Try go bullshitting somebody else. You know, Turco, I haven't been on Facebook in so long, I don't even know when the last time I was on Facebook. Sorry to disappoint you. Actually, Turco, yes, I do. I've been to college, been to masters. For truth's sake, V3. Yeah, I can tell you this is the first time you've been to my channel. It's not exactly my format in these types. If you want a well thought out counterpoint, go to my edited videos. Whatever, dude. Believe what you want. Go to mommy and get your comfort blanket. Moving on.
Is a man tries to take on the role of God. It's man attempting to, in a Promethean sense, be God, and it still believes in God. It still has the attributes and necessity for God, but it all places that within the mind of fine.
Oh my God, I'm so tired of this argument. You're not really an atheist because everybody knows there's a God. No, I don't know that. And you have no clue what I do or don't know. Only I know what I do or don't know because only I know my own mind. So quit trying to mind read. And that goes for all of you fucking Christians out there who want to pretend that you know what's in other people's minds. Dude, I do these for fun, okay? Hey, Drew. Yeah, I don't believe in demons either. What about atheists? Don't you understand? That's true, Turco. But you know what? It is for truth because Christianity is a lie. Christianity is a goddamn lie. And I'm tired of Christians being lied to. I don't know if there's a God, but I damn well know that the Christian God doesn't exist. And if you stick around, well, I don't give a shit if you stick around, but you might find it a little worth your time to question whether the Christian God is real or not. No, Turco. For all I know, the Buddhists are right. I don't give a shit if I'm right. That's not what this is about. This is about finding truth. V3. These aren't for arguments. Go to my edited videos from arguments. Because there I can actually, write out what I want to say, which, is important if you're going to give a well thought out response. Move it on.
Finite, meaningless man. What is man in this system? He's just a drop of dust, a bag of human cells, a bag of cells based basically chemical reactions in an infinite vast universe of meaninglessness, doing meaningless things, bubbling over, right? Your words, this is just chemical reactions. There's no meaning here. And then he comes back to dust. It's meaningless. And yet he spends his days.
Just because the universe doesn't have a meaning doesn't mean we can't have a meaning. We give meaning to our own lives. We express meaning through our actions. And just because I don't believe in a God doesn't mean I don't believe that my life has meaning. Because the people I love, I have meaning to them. And it is goddamn hilarious that you think that just because atheists don't believe in God, that somehow means they don't have meaning to their lives. Yeah, you can go fuck yourself, Jay. Then what is he saying, Turco? Because that's how I interpreted it. So yeah, I'd like to know what's he meant. What is he meaning to say? Because like I said at the beginning, this is my first time seeing this dude. Okay. No, V3, that's what he said. I don't have to, Turco. I don't have to give an account for what I want my life to mean. That doesn't make any sense. V3. Again, atheism is not a worldview. He just said that atheists don't have meaning in their life. I'm paraphrasing. It's an answer to a question. Do you believe in God? You're a theist. Do you not believe in God? Or do you not know there's a God? You're an atheist. Yeah, well, you know what, Turco? You believe what you want to believe because you're going to do that anyway. You're going to do that anyway. Nothing can provide meaning except us, V3. Not even Christianity provides meaning. Why would I want somebody else to tell me what my meaning for my life is? Ultimately, you are going to be responsible for what you accept the meaning of your life is. And if you accept the meaning of your life is the meaning that Christianity gives it, that is you saying, this is my meaning. That's subjective. That is subjective. Just because I reject Christianity's meaning for my life doesn't mean I don't have meaning for my life. Okay? Well, you can believe whatever you want, Turco. Crash, I don't believe in God. I'm an agnostic atheist. Thanks for joining, though. Appreciate having you here. No, no, V3. Nothing about this is objective. Nothing. You think I'm miserable? No, I stopped being miserable when I stopped being a Christian. Christianity made me miserable. V3. It doesn't. I can change the meaning of my life tomorrow. That's the beauty of it. I don't have a set meaning for my life. I can change the meaning of my life tomorrow. Prove what, Turco? Well, that's what you believe, Crash. It's not what I believe. Yeah, you do know that's just a linguistic trap, don't you, V3? Miserable is just a word that we slapped a label on a bad emotion. Moving on. I think we're almost through.
Fighting theism, fighting the things that he thinks are suppressing. Why do you even care about people being suppressed, right? Why do you care about superstition? Why do you care about being noble, fighting for what's true, being rational, being logical? It's a giant meaningless universe. So those things are all meaningless. I remember
Meaningless universe doesn't mean meaningless life. That's an equivocation fallacy you got going there, Jay. No, V3. No words have a universal meaning. Because words are language. And language is a human invention, a social construct that we use to communicate with each other. No, Turco, as far as we know, life is not in the universe. As far as we know, life is on this pale blue dot, and on one planet, in one solar system, in one galaxy, out of millions and millions and millions of galaxies. Hey, deconverted. Exactly, deconverted. You said the universe, Turco. Oh, deconverted man, you're gonna love this video. I swear, this dude, Dyer, has no fucking clue what he's on about. Yeah, Turco, yoink yourself more. Well, I don't believe he is fighting for good, Crash, because Christianity's the most anti-human nutballery I've ever come across. And that's coming from 40 years in the religion. Oh, I'm sorry, Turco. I don't have my teeth. What didn't you understand? Tell me the sentence before you stopped understanding me. You have got to be kidding me, Crash. Atheists are a small minority in the world. I told you this isn't for well thought out arguments, V3. If you want those, go to my edited videos. Oh, Crash, dumb stuff like world peace, like getting to live tomorrow, like, you know, my family being happy, you know, just dumb stuff like that. Oh, Turco, I'm responding to you. Crash, I was being facetious. D3, let me ask you from another perspective. Why should it be important from the Christian worldview? Because from the Christian worldview, you should dump your family like a sack of potatoes. Thank you, deconverted. Oh, crash. What did Jesus say? Leave everything and come follow me. That's a paraphrase, but yeah, he definitely said, drop your family like a sack of potatoes. Don't take care of your family. Come follow me. Dump your family like a sack of potatoes. Well, Crash, then Jesus certainly didn't follow that advice now, did he? He said that to his disciples, V3. And let's not forget that while Peter's mother in law was laying sick, Peter was gallivanting around the Galilee with Jesus. Look, deconverted is making some good ass points. So engage with him too. Moving on. No, Crash, I don't. Because I don't even believe in your God.
Being at a debate one time, and again, I always bring this up because it's a great example where the atheist, after the debate, came over and he said, I don't get your argument. He said, I think that really ultimately the root of all this, he said that
Yeah, Jay, that makes two of us. I don't get your arguments.
are afraid to embrace the fact that the universe is.
Thank you, deconverted. Why can't you people just accept that there are different points of view than yours? Atheist! But I came out of a Protestant background. Oh, I say don't you people all the time. Don't I, deconverted? Don't I say don't you people or you people or whatever? Okay, Turco. All right, moving on.
Ultimately meaningless. I said, "Do you really believe that?" He said, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "So would that mean that you believe your own life is meaningless?" And he said, "Absolutely." This day today,
Okay, Jay, do not push off one atheist's view of his life on all of us. Okay? We are not a monolith.
is meaningless, right? He said, "Yeah, sure, it's all meaningless." I said, "If this day today that we're experiencing right now is meaningless, does that also mean that the conversation, the words that you're saying to me are meaningless?" And he sat there for a minute and he said, "I'm tempted to bite the bullet here, but you're just playing word games." Well, of course, you have to bite the bullet here, right? If you believe that that's all meaningless, then you're part of this meaningless thing, and your arguments are meaningless.
Equivocation fallacy. Well, I don't do debates V3. I don't even watch them. I mean, it's just not my thing, you know? Hey, if having debates and watching debates is your thing, that's fine. Go for it. It's just not mine. No, I got off of it when it started being a right wing nutcase. Um, Whatever. I'm sorry. It's 1:40 a.m. here. Yeah, I'll think about it, Turco. Then look down upon it, Crash. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I'm wrong. This is These are my feelings on the subject. You don't have to like them.
And if your arguments are meaningless, then I have done my job as an apologist to show the incoherence and the foolishness of this position. And so, once again, and that's an example of the transcendental argument where somebody's utilizing something that's completely incoherent on their position, but it actually makes sense. If God exists, as we believe in Christianity, then there are metaphysical principles. There are ethical absolutes. There is the possibility of having knowledge and certitude. There is regularity in because of divine providence.
No, there's not. Because in order for you to have all that, you must believe that your God exists. And you cannot be 100% certain on that issue. Hey, Fernando. Just don't shove your religion down our throats. I don't really care if you're a Christian, as long as you don't try shoving your religion down my throat.
But on that system, there's not, and it's all meaningless. So I would say that atheism, as we said, assumes all of these standards. This is my ninth reason. And this includes things like morals and absolutes, right? It assumes the things that are necessary to refute Christianity that only make sense within a theistic or Christian worldview.
Oh my God, here we go. The moral argument. Oh God, this is a horrible, horrible, horrible argument. Actually, deconverted, most of these people are new on my video too. Welcome, everyone, welcome. No, Jay, we don't assume that the morals of your worldview are objective morals, because they're not. Sorry to burst your bubble, but even if your God existed, they would be God's subjective morals. And then you have to judge that Christianity is true. And that means that you subjectively judge those morals to be true, which makes them doubly subjective. I'm sorry, deconverted. You'd have to be a fool not to believe in evolution, Crash. No, Crash, we did not come from monkeys. Typical creationist misunderstanding. We did not come from monkeys. We are descended from a common ancestor. Not the same. We descended from a common ancestor, Crash. Well, created is loaded language, Crash.
To try to argue against it. And so it's essentially sitting on the limb like a cartoon character as it saws the limb. Let me give an example of this. If you think about Wittgenstein. Wittgenstein says all words are word games. Language is just word games. It's just tricking people. It's just this kind of.
Yeah, I don't care what this dude said. I don't even remember his name. Moving on.
Stuff. He says that ultimately, if you just deconstruct all language, it's meaningless. But he just wrote a book with 100, 200 pages admitting words are meaningless.
Do I have to engage in this? Okay. In the grand scheme of things, yeah, it's meaningless. Because guess what? Humans invented language for human purposes. That's all it is. It's moving one idea from one brain to another brain. That's what language is. 500,000 years from now, they're not going to care.
Using words that are to convince you that words are meaningless. So he's conveying meaning, an objectively true thing, he thinks, utilizing meaninglessness, and ultimately saying his book is. That's a basic presuppositional critique. It's nonsense. It's foolishness. All atheism ends in this very same bucket trash bin of foolishness and philosophical.
Okay, that was this last point. Damn, that was almost 2 hours of nutballery. Yeah, I thought the same thing, you know. I mean, he basically had like 7 points, if I'm being generous, not 10. Language and faith don't have anything to do with each other. Damn right, deconverted. Oh my god. Oh my god, that was a shit show. I can't I can't even believe Jay put that on the internet. I, I cannot, like I said, I can't believe that Jay put that on the internet. I thought it was going to be better than that. Like, oh my god. I knew, like, in the first 5 minutes it was going to be a shit show. I just didn't know it was going to be that much of a shit show. Oh god. Mm. Well, at least now I know where Armando got some of his shit show of the book from. Okay, for the Christians in here, do you watch Armando Calvo? Have you read his books? Do you even know who Armando Calvo is? Yeah, Turk. Video's over. I'm just shooting the breeze now. Thanks for stopping by. There's a load of laughs. And I mean that sincerely. I mean that sincerely. Thank you for stopping by. Oh, sure. I'll put it in chat. This dude is like ground fruit. He's ground fruit deconverted, so you've been warned. Logic has a good series on his A Conscious Universe. So, you know, um, if you want a good breakdown of a conscious universe, go to Logic's channel. Oh, you've never heard of Logic? Oh, come on, deconverted. Yeah, the plagiarist. Yeah, he still hasn't learned his lesson. Yeah, and then he got all butthurt that us atheists were calling him out on being a plagiarist. Well, you shouldn't have done it, Armando. But anyway, I think I'm gonna go try to get some sleep. So thanks for coming, everyone, and thank you, my newcomers. Oh, I didn't know that deconverted. I'll have to go check them out. Okay, see you later, everyone. Bye.